Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
The graveside service for the man's wife had just barely finished when there was a massive clap of rolling thunder, followed by a tremendous bolt of lightning, accompanied by even more thunder rumbling in the distance. The little old man looked at the pastor and calmly said, "Well, she's there. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America," followed by a patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance on a Tuesday. Morning, morning, morning. Sweet home. Thank you, Kate Smith, and God bless America. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, and, of course, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, and, of course, some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley, and Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call them at 734-6969. And here she is right now, a little bit wind-blown. Woo! Gina, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we survived yesterday. Holy cow.
No, it wasn't. It was wind-blown cow. I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable, the duration of that high wind.
I know. It lasted from, about 6 o'clock in the morning to almost 9 o'clock at night last night.
Yeah, and honestly, and I say this to everybody out there, and Gina, of course, was at the station yesterday reporting on some of the tragedies that happen as far as accidents and everything. But to my neighbors and even myself, I saw something last night I can't believe that the wind did to blow over the stacks of hay that I've got here. The way that they were stacked and the way that they were so tightly together and everything, I just can't believe it.
You know, it was incredible. I think we had 5 confirmed trucks tip over.
Wow.
And then 2 unconfirmed right out by Amalgamated. So a total of 7 trucks yesterday got tipped over.
When I looked at that picture, and Gina and I conversed about this prior to going on the air this morning, when I looked at that picture of that one truck leaning on the outside of the guardrail, going possibly down to the depths of the canyon, let me just say this. I would have calmly got out of the truck, walked to the edge of the bridge, sat down and cried my eyes out, and then applied for a job as a vacuum cleaner salesman. I would not have got in a truck again.
That's not exactly the way you put it.
I know, but why do you have to remind everybody that sometimes our conversation is a little bit different?
Because our conversation prior to was a little bit more funny. But it was definitely scary. And did you see that video?
Oh,
Of the truck sliding on the Hanson Bridge?
Yes. I mean, there's no way that... I told you yesterday, look at my hands are sweating. If you're watching on television right now on the camera, my hands honestly are just breaking out in a sweat thinking about that bridge and the trucks. And, just imagine yesterday if I had been going across that Hanson Bridge with an empty aluminum trailer, or anyone with an empty aluminum stock trailer. Oh, baby.
Yeah, so you couldn't get me in a truck, and so yesterday was absolutely nuts, and I'm glad that there were no major injuries, because that was pretty phenomenal considering the winds that we had.
You know who's going to be the hardest working people in the world today right here in Magic Valley?
The cleanup crews.
Insurance adjusters.
Yes, this is true. This is very true.
Do we have a pledger?
We have Rotten on for the pledge.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, Rotten. Pledge, please.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was great, and I appreciate the emphasis. Thank you so much, Rotten.
I can barely hear you.
I said God bless you and thank you.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you much. Time now for the weather. Let's take a listen.
All right, weather for today. Looking at mostly sunny skies. High right around 41. Going to be a little bit breezy, not as bad as it was yesterday. Winds out of the west right around 15 miles an hour. Tonight we're expecting a low near 25. And then as we look ahead towards the extended forecast, tomorrow going to be sunny skies, high near 54. And by Thursday, mostly sunny and 48. Currently sitting at 26 degrees at the Burley Airport.
Gina, great job. Thank you very much. That's our weather forecast. 15 miles an hour sounds like almost calm.
It sounds like just a slight breeze.
Yeah, it does. Oh, we got a lot of things. We got a lot of things to talk about this morning. Never had so many topics in so short of time. And right now we're going to tell everybody about SafeLink Internet. With every customer referral, a customer receives $39.95 credit to their account. So start referring your neighbors, because absolutely this is the number one choice for high-speed internet. SafeLink Internet. You betcha. SafeLink Internet, 677-8000. These are wonderful people that are now absolutely, they've launched a campaign statewide, and let me tell you, they are the best. SafeLink Internet. You give them a call today, 677-8000. Also, I want to remind you real quick about our friends at Daryl's Cleaners. I don't go anywhere else with my clothes, my sports jackets, shirts, Wranglers, everything, right there at Daryl's Cleaners. Because why? They're the best. Honestly, you won't find anybody any better anywhere. Everything comes back looking brand spanking new. From Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You stop in and see them today. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, Zeb, this is the day for the food giveaway at the Christian Center in Burley.
Okay.
So I thought I'd call and let people know.
All right, real quick, what time does it start, and give us the location?
Okay, it's on 27th Street, and it's the Mountain View Christian Center.
Okay.
People can start coming anytime.
Okay.
We start letting people in about 9 o'clock. Usually the truck gets here about 10, and people come on in and get signed up to get their food box. And then when the food's all got put out, then they start collecting their food.
All right. Now, I want to just say something to you and everybody connected with what's going on. God bless you for all your help to help others. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And have
God bless you.
Have a wonderful day. And next time that you're getting prepared for this, call me earlier and we'll get it on the air more often, okay?
Okay.
All right. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice lady. Nice people doing great things for others, and I really appreciate that. Boy, that just dovetails me right into my next advertiser, too, and that's Ramsey Heating and Electric, doing nice things to help other people. They always do, and they've got incandescent light bulbs. Keith and the rest of the crew bought a whole bunch of incandescent light bulbs, and I'm glad they did, because I went down there and I bought a box full of them. And in the 40, 60, 75, or 100-watt size, I'm not going to listen to the government edicts telling me what I can have on in my house, and that's why I stocked up. I think I've got enough to last me till, 2097? Anyway, you should stop in, too. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they always have, for you, warm winters and cool summers. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to touch on a couple of stories here this morning real fast. Number one, there's an editorial op-ed piece in the Times News this morning that is very disconcerting to me because of the leftist and evolutionist twist to this op-ed from John Alexander. John has been on my program when the Times News came out one time. I had no idea that John was a anti-faith, anti-religion person like he is, evidently, with this op-ed piece, and very much an evolutionist. And basically, John must be a clone to Darwinistic tomfoolery with no sense of future or faith. And I really do pity the man if these are his viewpoints. And I'm going to be talking more about this tomorrow. Evolutionism versus creationism, and some of his points just absolutely make no sense. And again, I pity the person that has nothing for a future outlook, no faith, no look to the future with hope, and I feel sorry for him. Just read that op-ed in the paper this morning, and you'll understand why I feel the way I do. Valley-wide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Oh, yesterday was chick days, and they had chicks here, chicks there. They had chicks all over the place. And, boy, I tell you what, they had a great day. Had a great day, and they've got all the Montana Silversmiths jewelry over there for anybody that needs a gift to maybe get them out of the doghouse or whatever. They've got all the boots by Ariat. They've got men's, women's, and children's sizes, and, I mean, they got the men's boots in D and wider widths. They've got it all for you over there. And by the way, 4-Hers, they've got all your material too. Valley-wide Home and Ranch with Steve and the rest of the crew at 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Please, 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 please stop in and see them today. What upset her all of a sudden? The dog starts barking. I want to say this real quick, and I mean this. The ACLU is going to challenge what they call the Ag-Gag bill. And here's what they said with Monica, I think that's how you say her name, Monica, I'm sorry. The ink is spurred a little bit to the right and the left, and it looks like E-A-I, and no, it's Monica. When the government takes away our freedom of speech, we lose our freedom of thought, said Monica Hopkins, executive director of the ACLU. But now, wait a minute. They want to just come onto private property and do and film and act in any manner that they want to. And their First Amendment rights end on my property line. And that's when my Second Amendment rights take over. And these people are extremely rude and insidious. The way they will try to take films and twist and turn and distort the films with editing, etc., to make the animal rights people look like they're some kind of a God-given gift, and anybody with animal agriculture or agriculture in general is wrong. I've worked against these people for years in the rodeo business, and I know what I'm talking about. I don't trust any one of them. But to come onto private property and try to create an aura of something illegal, once again, I say your First Amendment rights end at my property line, and my Second Amendment rights will take over. If I'm with my friends outside my arena and we're roping and I see anybody stop, come onto my property to film it, etc., without my permission, believe me, my friends and myself will stop roping the steers and choose other targets. Get my drift? Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget Don Taylor Farms Auction. That's coming up this Thursday, managed by Musser Brothers Auctions and Real Estate. Oh, this is going to be a ripping good sale. 1200 North, 200 East of Rupert. 10:30 a.m. Randy Musser and the crew bring down the gavel and start selling tractors and balers and swathers and grain equipment and loaders and backhoe and groundworking equipment, beat equipment, trailers, sprayers, you name it, it's all there. This is honestly a really, really good sale. Managed by the best, Musser Brothers Auctions and Real Estate. Call them for more information, 733-8700. Don Taylor Farms Auction this Thursday the 20th, 10:30 a.m. 1200 North, 200 East of Rupert. Be there. Going to be a good sale. Also, real quick, and then we'll start taking some of your calls, I want to say thank you again to Denny's Restaurant. We needed a place, a home, a family home, for our lunch bunch. And they have an excellent room, and the waitresses and the service has been just absolutely impeccable. And I just thank Thomas. He's the quarterback coordinator of the whole thing. And Thomas, you deserve a pat on the back. You did a wonderful job. And don't forget, you can celebrate your birthday at Denny's with a free Grand Slam breakfast. Oh, it's good. Just bring in your valid ID to prove it's your birthday and sit down and get your grinners going, because it's great food at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. You're going to love it. The home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Now, we talked a little bit about that story of evolutionism with John Alexander in the Times News. Talked a little bit about the ACLU challenging the Ag Bill, which I will do all I can to defeat those people that are with animal rights groups. And this is another story this morning that just absolutely, when Deanne handed me this, a friend of mine by the name of Neil Monroe writes for the Daily Caller back in Washington, D.C. And tomorrow, sounds like from a stage play, tomorrow, Michelle Obama, her mother, and the two kids are going to go along with numerous White House aides and numerous security personnel, and they're leaving for China. And the White House is refusing to answer questions from the media about how much the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for this trip. Now, some of the people I've talked to this morning have said that the trip could cost anywhere from $650,000 of taxpayer money to possibly over $1 million. And this thing is being touted as, oh, what a thrill for the First Lady and her mama and the girls to go on a trip to China. Well, I'm sitting here in my studio at 66 years of age, and I'm going to continue working because I have to continue working to pay all the bills. And you out there in Radio Land are doing your best to make sure that you ensure some kind of a future of security, of money for your family. You're working hard. And it just warms the cockles of my heart to know that Michelle and her mama and the two daughters, along with numerous White House aides and all the security people, are going to go over to China and live high on the proverbial hog of our money. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. On that ag-gag bill, I seen a sign that we need to post around our farms and stuff and our feedlots. It says, I own a gun and a backhoe, no trespassing.
You know, Doug, the way the laws are today, and I want to be really careful how we talk about this, because nothing can be ascertained as a threat, okay? But the laws today are not in favor of private property owners, and they make a mockery out of trying to protect your property and or your private items on your property, whether it's a horse, cows, whatever, hay, it doesn't make any difference. And for these people, these animal rights activist kooks, thinking that they can come onto a dairy, go into a feedlot, go onto anybody's property, whether it's a roping arena or whatever, and just enjoy the right of their First Amendment with free speech. I'm telling you, Doug, the threat that I said earlier about changing targets with the ropes from the steers to something else was meant, and it will happen.
I understand you, but I can't understand how the First Amendment gives them the right to film something on private property.
Well,
that's what I'm not understanding.
Yeah, and you know, the ambiguity of these people saying that they can come on and they can do anything they want, and then you could take, let's just say the movie Mary Poppins or The Wizard of Oz, and you could edit that to the point where some people are thinking that it's a porno movie.
True, or it's degrading to little people, or
anything
to scare, dumb people. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah, I'm livid about this kind of thing, and I'm very protectionist about private property rights. I'm very much of a protectionist against anybody coming onto a farm, a dairy, horse operation, whatever the case might be. And I'll give you a scenario. This bill far exceeds anything with the dairy industry. I mean, it could be a training operation for horses. And you know as well as I do, I've been around horses all my life, when they act like little kids and they need to be spanked, they need to be spanked very hard so that event doesn't happen again for the safety of the animal and the rider.
And the people.
It's exactly right. And I, therefore, will never, ever even consider allowing some animal rights gunsel to come onto my property at any time with any camera. The camera would be worthless once they left the property, and so would they for a short time.
Right. And, just a thought right there. Someone that has never been around horses before.
They don't know.
And they see you sacking out a horse, they would think you were the meanest person that ever walked this earth.
There are purposes in every livestock operation. There are purposes for what is done and why it is done. And I'm not about to sit here, or even with these people. I've worked with these people. I've had to sit down and listen to their garbage on radio and television interviews when I was representing the PRCA, the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. These people have one agenda, and that's no animal usage whatsoever.
Exactly. And little they know that what you do when you train the horses and stuff like that is safety. It's for safety.
Well, Doug, I'll go back and say, again, like I said it earlier, and I'm very sincere when I say this, that if they're complaining about their lack of First Amendment rights, their First Amendment rights end at my property line, and my Second Amendment rights take over.
Right. But I'd like to have somebody explain how the First Amendment allows somebody to do that.
Well,
the First Amendment's a speech.
Look at the mockery, though, Doug. Look at the mockery of private property rights and how it's been distorted to the point where people think they can go anywhere, do anything. The EPA can come in and just absolutely turn your life upside down and in a turmoil like they did to that couple up in northern Idaho. I mean, there is no such thing as private property rights anymore. That's a farce.
Yeah, it's time we start taking the country back by making sure the politicians we vote in know the Constitution and what it means and when it was drafted, and stand up for us instead of stand up for big, these people that buy these lobbyists that line the pockets that take them out to dinners and all this sort of stuff.
Amen. Good call. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
You bet. Bye.
Give me a jingle, 436-2244-1-866-927-4587. I'm very, very sincere that we need to stand up and be very supportive of the bill that was passed and signed by the governor. And these people that want to try to make all these challenges with the ACLU, I'm trying to see who else is involved in this lawsuit. It looks like, I'm going to have to check that out here. The American Civil Liberties Union, along with a small group of animal and food safety activists, are challenging the constitutionality of the bill. Well, you just go ahead and challenge, but don't try to come on my property. Travelube Supply, my goodness sakes, 1050 West 203 south of Heyburn, 438-8730, the number to call. They deliver the goods. They've got all your bolts, metric and standard bolts, and they've got all the bolt bins, and they got all your filters for your equipment. Oh my. They really overdid it when they ordered filters, and as a matter of fact, they brought in 2 semi-trailer loads, and you can save up to 90% off on those filters, and they got Bubba ropes discounted 10%. They've got all the chain for the wheel lines. They've got everything, and Jim McCall's greatest guy in the world. They'll help you at Travelube Supply, 1050 West 203 south of Heyburn. Oh, by the way, too, Ramsey Heating and Electric can offer rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems, and Lennox is the sponsor of our Capital Press Ag Minute. Whether it's a gas furnace, an air conditioner, or a heat pump, you and your family will enjoy the comfort at Lennox. Of course, has been a dealer with Ramsey's for a long, long time. Ramsey's at 678-0459, located at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Right now, the Capital Press Ag Minute.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
Pacific Northwest apple and pear exports to Russia could be hurt if the U.S. imposes sanctions on Russia over the situation in Crimea and Ukraine. Russia is an important market, and losing it, on top of losing China as an apple market, would not be good, said Todd Fryhofer, president of the Washington Apple Commission in Wenatchee. U.S. or European banking, oil, and natural gas sanctions against the Russians could result in retaliatory sanctions against U.S. agricultural products, including apples and pears. It more likely would result in a weakening of Russian currency to the point where Russians could no longer afford to buy Northwest fruit. For the Capital Press Ag Minute, this is Brandon Tenner.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West's Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and CapitalPress.com.
And it's brought to you by Lennox Home Comfort Systems, and of course through our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I thought I heard you say there's no such thing as private property rights.
Now, wait a minute, Fred. Don't distort it. I said that private property rights, as we knew them, have become a thing of the past to where the private property owners have basically been diminished with their rights and freedoms, and it seems like everybody else can do what they want.
Well, they don't want to come on my private property, try to shut things down.
But there again, though, Fred, honestly, you're one of my dearest friends. You've got to admit that everything is stacked against the property owner to where if you make any move towards these people, you're the one that's going to be subject to possibly incrimination. Now, that's what I said earlier. There's no such thing as private property rights as they were designed.
Well, I got that right. You got that right. But they'd suffer if they come on my property.
Well, that's why I kept
chain things.
Well, and you and I agree. You know, that's where they're using the First Amendment and free speech and everything to come onto our property. But I say at my property line, that's where my Second Amendment rights take over, and they'd better cease and desist.
That's right. That's right. Hey, when do you get that sciatic nerve operation?
I'm going in Friday morning, and let me tell you, my dear, dear friend, Friday morning cannot come quick enough for me.
No, I can understand that. There's nothing more painful.
Boy, I mean,
I wish you the best.
Well, God bless you for your thoughts and your kindness. But, you know, actually the surgery on my leg, Fred, that I had the whole bone and everything taken out and everything, that does not hurt at all. But the tearing of that sciatic nerve, let me tell you, it makes me want to sit in a high chair and whine like a little baby.
I'm sure I've had that sciatic nerve hurt, but not like you have, I'm sure.
Well, God bless you and Joyce, and thank you for your call, man, because I know if there's anybody that's going to protect private property rights, I want Fred Preston standing next to me. You'll be there. I know you will.
Well, hey, buddy.
All right, thank you.
Be there for you in a minute, you know that.
All right, Fred. Thanks. God bless you, man. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey, don't forget, calls are welcome. Penetron Soil Conditioner by Maisie. Hello, Adrian and the rest of the folks with Maisie, with a 20-year proven record of increasing yield and quality of all Idaho crops. It has 30 interactive components, and it really helps speed germination, reduces crusting, improves stand, stimulates root growth and microbial activity, and builds soil structure, too. And you know what? It saves water. It saves a lot on irrigation water, and the water savings alone will pay for the cost of the product. And Penetron-treated crops have better roots that result in better water and nutrient uptake. There you go. Larger crop yields, better quality. You better contact your fertilizer dealer today, your crop advisor today. Call them and tell them you want Penetron Soil Conditioner right now for your crops this year. Okay, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. This gets worse and worse all the time. The story about this missing Malaysian jet, Flight 370. Last night, and you know I don't like Bill O'Reilly. And then somebody will say, well, why do you watch him then if you don't like him? Well, it's because I want to find out always what his stand is on various issues and where he's dropped the ball or where he's really uneducated. And he is very much so on a lot of issues, very much uneducated. Well, he made a comment last night that I thought was one of pure arrogance. It was nothing more than of pure self-appreciation. And it really upset me because basically he was denouncing his other comrades, not only on Fox News, but the other journalists in the media, when basically he said, and I'm rounding off the words, that if they didn't share his opinion that the plane went down in the Indian Ocean, he denounced any other theories and said that they should just keep quiet. There are right now so many theories and so many stories and so many thoughts as to what happened or could have happened with that Flight 370 Malaysian Airlines and the horrendous end, possibly, to 250 people on board that plane. And for someone like O'Reilly to basically give a definite that, yeah, it's in the Indian Ocean, etc., that's his definite and that's his speculation. Because right now nobody else knows. There is no one that knows where that plane is. But something else has emerged here this morning as a matter of theory or speculation. And I feel as a journalist that it's improper not to expose all the different fields of thought for you, the audience, and then you pick and choose and are able to say, I never thought of that. That's a good point. There were a couple of people on the air early this morning that I really admired the way they had everything laid out. And they are very considerate, I think is a good word, for the safety and security of Israel. As we all know, the Middle Eastern countries have vowed, like Syria and Iran and others, to wipe Israel off the map. And the two gentlemen that I listened to this morning, and they were both on at different times, they weren't on the same segment, they were very, very concerned that this plane could be very possibly on the ground right now, being refitted, repainted, and restructured for an enormous explosion to take place, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, whatever. And their point of interest is that Israel has to look at every option as far as a lack of security and make sure that they're ready to cover possibly that security and be ready for any attack. And you know, when you think about this theory about the plane that I mentioned last Tuesday, you can hate me for it or you can give me accolades. I don't care. I said last Tuesday, right after this happened, that it would be absolutely a shame if that plane was flown to a Middle Eastern country, refitted, repainted, and used in an act of terror like we saw, much worse than 9/11. You can look it up on the tape. I'll give you the tape. And if this comes true, or in this circumstance, it doesn't pan out with this Flight 370, and they find that the plane did go in the ocean, this has given other scenarios to the bad guys. And Lord help us if they go ahead and do something like that. Lord help us. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Hey, don't forget the big 42nd annual Salmon Select Horse and Mule Sale that's coming up April 10th all the way through Sunday, April 13th. And I mean, every day is just absolutely chock full of fun for you and the family at the Lemhi County Fairgrounds with my buddy Fred Snook and the rest of the crew. I'm telling you, Thursday the 10th, they're going to start with a great big welcome, and they're going to have a wolf howling contest. Oh, boy. And then the Mule Sale Calcutta, Friday the 11th, the mule sale, and all kinds of other things like mule packing competition and everything. Saturday the 12th, they're going to have Cowboy Church along with the 42nd annual horse sale, and then Sunday a huge team roping starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, they know how to have fun up there at Salmon. 42nd annual Salmon Select Horse and Mule Sale, April 10th through the 13th at the Lemhi County Fairgrounds. Don't you miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, get some calls in here. Come on, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please give me a jingle. Excuse me. Bad throat again this morning. Apologize for that. John Bolton, former United Nations ambassador from America. Of all the comments that I've absolutely appreciated, that I figure as quotations about how bad politics is getting, how negative the Obama administration is, and how powerless I feel that Obama is in the world and scheme of things. John Bolton had the best comment talking about John Kerry, Secretary of State John Kerry, and his quote-unquote negotiating toughness with Putin and Russia. John Bolton said, Kerry is like a cupcake against a steak knife. That summed it up. John Kerry, representing the Obama administration, like a cupcake against Putin as a steak knife. Kind of tells it all like it is right there. I know Gina's going to say, you forgot the tip of the coffee cup. Well, almost. Our tip of the coffee cup this morning goes to some really nice people this morning. John and Nancy Bruni, I just talked to them earlier this morning. Tip of the coffee cup to them. And the folks at Denny's Restaurant, tip of the coffee cup to them. And also a very nice lady, Gloria Struken. And we say good morning and have a very good day from Zeb at the Ranch. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call about any of the topics that we've talked about this morning or anything else that's kind of making you scratch and itch a little bit. While we're waiting, I want to tell you about our friends at Berry Equipment and Rental. Man, they've got your equipment. You're covered. You don't have to look any further. You don't have to drive all over. You don't have to go to Salt Lake. You don't have to go to Boise. All you got to do is just go to Twin Falls or Burley. 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, brand new location, or even Jerome, 2331 South Lincoln in Jerome. They're all over. And they've got those great Coyote tractors. Oh, man, I want one of those so bad. They've got all your loaders and all your heavy equipment. They've got everything you need for your farming and ranching operation. So, hey, I'm telling you, you better get over there. All your excavators, everything. They're just asking for the opportunity to earn your business. So you stop in today. 3 locations serving you of Berry Equipment and Rental. They've got everything that you're looking for. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a jingle on the landline. Let's see what else have we got in the news here this morning. Oh, by the way, the man, the doctor, Vivek Murthy, that was Obama's pick to be the Surgeon General. Ooh, you know what? There's trouble in River City. Even the Democrats, even a lot of the Democrats are sitting back saying, hey, we've had a lot of calls coming into our office from our constituents. They don't like this Murthy guy because he's against gun ownership. He's against the Second Amendment, and we're not going to pass him through. So there is talk this morning that the Obama administration might rescind the name of Vivek Murthy for Surgeon General. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Hi there.
I hate to say this, but I'm sure getting sick and tired of all of this deal with the airplane. But, of course, we've got to keep it on the front page. I think you and I talked right after that happened that we figured that that airplane is on a runway somewhere being refurbished so that it can do mayhem somewhere else.
We did. And to back up to what you said a moment ago, there's a lot of likeness, Chris, to what happened with Benghazi and also to what happened to this plane. And I'll tell you what the simple link in the chain is. People died, and we don't know perhaps for what reason.
Yeah. And now then that Benghazi is so out of the headlines, and who knows who's sniffing around. We may never know.
Well, I don't think we ever will, and I'll tell you, the thing that bothers me is we had 4 American citizens over in Benghazi that went to their demise, and this government, in a very callous form, really didn't show any wanting to find out who the bad guys are for punishment. And now 250 people in round numbers are missing on an airliner, and their families need the comfort and solace of at least the closure of knowing what happened to them.
Yes, yes. And when we go back to Benghazi, that is one reason for not voting in Hillary Clinton for the next president.
Amen.
Because what did she say? Who cares?
No, her words were exactly, what difference does it make?
Right, and it's about the same thing.
Yeah.
And if we could really talk to her and get to the meat of this subject, how would she be handling this?
Well, let me ask you something, Chris, real quick, and this goes to everybody in the audience this morning. Do you notice when these people are being interviewed, when these people are being asked questions, that they have this elitist attitude of, I'll give you the time, little person, to answer one or two of your questions and then leave me alone? Let me give you a case in point. Last night, I don't know if you saw this or not, Chris, but they had a kind of a recap of some of the interviews and some of the journalists that were trying to talk to President Obama and how he shined them on and tried to filibuster and not really answer their questions. And Bret Baier basically held the president's feet to the fire and kept interrupting him and saying, answer the question. And Obama got mad and just went ahead and filibustered anyway. You know, he is an American employee. He works for us, and he should be held accountable. Your response?
Well, he has such an arrogance about him. And yeah, look at this. Sending his family to China for a spring vacation. And isn't that nice of us Americans to let his family globetrot while we're having problems? Anyway, he is so out of the loop, or he is so good at what he's doing that he is really... he's taken our country down.
Let me ask you a question. How much do you know about Michelle Obama?
Every day I hear some new things about her.
Well, no, but really, do you know about her family? Do you know about her family and how she grew up and where she grew up and who she worked for and everything?
Well, I know this, I think, that her father was a high school principal in Chicago. Well, and that's where she grew up, I guess.
Yeah, well, let me just fill you in on a little bit of her background. And there's some question marks that came up right away, and I'm giving a synopsis. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I put together some facts on this. She grew up in what was called a humble family that was entwined with the Democratic political machine in Chicago. Her dad worked as a Democratic political activist in Chicago, and she, growing up, listen to this, she earned money by babysitting for Jesse Jackson.
Yeah. Well, I think that it could be said about anybody in Chicago who has a thought of their own probably gets put down pretty quick, because that is such a Democratic town that even if you tried to be a Republican, you'd be taken out.
You know what offends me, though, is that it's the concept of Michelle, her mama, and the two children, and all the White House aides, all the hairdressers, all the clothing experts, everything, and all the security personnel, and then giving a refusal to say how much it's going to cost the taxpayers. And some estimates, like I said earlier, range from $650,000 to over $1 million. And why shouldn't we be upgraded and told how much money of our tax money is going to go to this?
Well, it's arrogance. We're the little people, and that's our responsibility, is to let them live like kings.
Well, we're doing a good job, aren't we?
We sure are.
All right, Chris.
But I have not seen royalty in any ounce of their blood.
And don't get me started on that. God bless you for your call. Have a great day. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
All righty. Calls are welcome and appreciated, but right now we're going to do a little update on the weather, and the weather brought to you this hour by Butte Irrigation. Oh, they've got 2 locations, and they are working right now. 116 South, 600 West of Paul, and north of Kimberly, right there at Red Cap Corner. Oh, my. Butte Irrigation, they will get you wet. They carry complete lines of everything you need and all your brand new parts and everything else. They've got your wheel lines and hand lines and main lines and pivots and pumps, everything. At Butte Irrigation, they'll get you wet. Right now, here is the weather.
I'm Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. The wind is starting to die down. We've got nicer weather, nothing like yesterday. We're going to see temperatures on the cooler side as a result of being the backside of a cold front. 57 for the high today. Make that 59 for the high today. And make that 31 for the overnight low. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
There you go, Michael. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. God bless you. And the weather brought to you by Butte Irrigation. Paul and Kimberly, they will get you wet. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. How many of you in the audience know who Bill Maher is? With, I get a text coming in, pineapple would help my sciatic nerve. Gina, did you just get that?
Yeah, I just texted it to you. You had a listener call in and said that eating pineapple might help with your sciatic nerve. So I'm just forwarding you the message.
Now, wait a minute. I'm not ever going to denounce or degrade anybody's opinion on anything.
Yeah, it might help.
Believe me, every night, and Deanna is sitting right here in the office, she can attest to that. Every night I eat a full bowl of fresh fruit, many of which in the bowl, along with peaches and mangoes, are pineapple.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm getting a lot of fruit and everything, but I'd never heard that pineapple was specifically for sciatic nerve.
I have not heard it either, but that's what one of our listeners said, is that by eating pineapple, it might help a little bit with your sciatic nerve.
I got to tell you, and unless you've had trouble with a sciatic nerve, you don't know. And I do now, but I've had guys tell me, I've had a lot of professional bulldoggers tell me that they've torn that sciatic nerve and everything.
Uh-huh.
And they said, man, they're on a 1 to 10 scale for pain. It's about 110. They said that son of a gun, and I never realized it until I tore this. And you can be standing perfectly still and just move wrong, and it seems like somebody sticks a knife in the back of your thigh and runs it up to your butt, and then they stick it into the hilt.
Yep. And my boyfriend James goes through the same thing. He has sciatic nerve problems, and so very well aware. Yeah, very, very painful. I've never had any sciatic nerve problems, but I don't want to either.
Well, and caller, I'll be right with you. Don't go away. Since the surgery, I've had to be extremely careful not to fall. Yeah. And thank the good Lord above, I, knock on wood, haven't fallen yet, which for me is unusual to go 3 months without a wreck. And I know the other night I stood up out of the chair, and I was going to go out in the kitchen and get a drink of water, and I took 2 steps and that thing hit me, and it was all I did to keep from wiping out the pellet stove.
Yeah, so you did the stop and drop?
Oh, and then had to go change clothes. Wow, that does hurt.
It does. It really does hurt. So my sympathies to you, and maybe pineapple will help.
I'll go buy do you buy pineapple groves or something, or how do you buy them?
You just buy, a big old pineapple.
Yeah, and we got to buy a pineapple. The gentleman called in and said that pineapple will help my sciatic nerve. So let's go buy a whole truckload of pineapple this afternoon. All right, caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. And stay off the motorcycles and
I gotta live.
Huh?
It doesn't hurt to go on the lawnmower and the horses and the four-wheelers as long as I keep them out of the water. What's the matter with you?
Oh, yeah. Anyway, you're talking about that Bill Maher?
Yeah.
Zeb, that is one man I would like to take and tie down and cut his damn ignorant tongue out.
Did you hear what he said?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I got to tell the audience while you stay on the line. Bill Maher basically got on his program, and he has always put forth a hate God, hate Christianity persona, and he compared God as being a mass murderer. I mean, there's got to be a line somewhere, Al, to where these people have to wake up, smell the coffee, and be censored. That was beyond the pale.
I mean, let's face it. If you're a Democrat and liberal like Maher and that, he's so damn ignorant that nobody wants... They didn't even clap. That's what gets me mad. Why is he still preaching that crap on the
I have no idea.
TV?
Bill Maher, I should say. I keep saying his name wrong. Bill Maher on HBO. It was as low class as it gets, and they were talking about Noah and the depiction of the story of Noah in the Bible, and then also this new film that's coming out with Russell Crowe. And he basically said that God has been nothing more than a mass murderer through history. And Al, those kind of responses, I'm glad I wasn't sitting there on the stage.
Well, I mean, it's getting ridiculous, and I mean, if it's going to be all right for certain people to do that, then don't be criticizing the other, on the right and people like that believe in Christ and God. And just, Mr. Maher, take a long hike off a short pier and come back.
Couldn't agree more, Al. I'm glad you picked up on that because when I first heard the remark and then I listened to the remarks in the first person as he said them, I thought, wow, how does he get away with that?
I just noticed that when he got done spieling like that, there was very little applause at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. Al, you're always appreciated on the show. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Hey, don't forget, there is right now, this moment, a huge spring tire sale taking place at all 7 locations of your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. I kid you not. They've got the best in all the tires you need for your cars and your pickups and your SUVs on sale. On sale right now. What are you waiting for? Get over there. And the best in brake service, the best in batteries on sale, shocks and struts, front end alignments, oh my, custom wheels. You better get in there right now. And credit is always easy. They've got 4 different plans available for you with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Poline, Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. Big spring tire sale at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Wow. Let's get kind of a recap here on things we talked about. The ACLU challenging the ag bill that was passed here in the state of Idaho. Michelle Obama is going to take her 2 little darling daughters and her mama, and they're going to go to China at our expense, along with all the aides and security people, and it's going to cost us a bundle. However, they said that the trip is very well worth it. Oh, really? What else did we talk about? The terrible, terrible plane crash that just is ongoing now in its 11th day. And bad wind yesterday. I hope everybody's okay. I can just imagine a lot of insurance adjusters are sipping on a hot cup of coffee and their pens are working overtime. And let's see what else is there going on right now. John Bolton, we told you about that. He compared John Kerry's negotiating toughness with Putin as a cupcake against a steak knife. How true. You know what's really funny about this whole situation with Obama and John Kerry and everything, and Russia and Putin? Remember during the campaigns? Remember when they had the debates with Obama and Romney? And remember when Romney sat there at the table and looked Obama right in the eye, and he told Obama that Russia was going to be the catalyst of the problems. He told him that. Romney was right. And Obama showed his amateuristic attitude and lack of leadership and denounced Romney. You know, it's coming back to haunt the old boy. Coming up next hour, hopefully I'll get my throat cleared up, Joe Wolverton, an expert and a great author of many, many stories about gun control that's trying to be permeated through the United States with the United Nations and also our government. And then also at 9:30, a lovely lady with the Concerned Veterans for America, Amber Barno, talking about the dangers of being in certain hospitals with the VA. We're going to talk about that. I'll be back in 6. Well, welcome back. Hour number 2. We just had a report, and it was on the news, and Deanne looked it up, about a helicopter that hit or was close to hitting the Space Needle in Seattle. And we're going to be doing some more checking on that. And we don't know anything about anybody on the ground injured. We don't know anything about the helicopter crew, the news crew. I believe it was a news helicopter. And we'll try to find out more as the hour goes along. Morning, everybody. I'm Zeb at the Ranch, Zeb Bell, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, along with some of our great advertisers that include Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland in Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services. And,
of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
if you need a dumpster to get rid of a lot of the trash, you're cleaning out your garage or your barn, shop or tack room, whatever the case might be, they've got them in various sizes ready for you at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. And don't forget, too, they've got all the porta potties. They've got a great recycling program. They've got the weekly trash collection. They've got it all for you. Everything, along with the Go Minis, the portable storage units. Oh, those are good. Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. disposal. Call them, please. 734-6969. Before we get our guest on this hour, I also want to remind you about friends of mine that absolutely have been so supportive of our Zeb's Lunch Bunch and other activities in the area, and that's Joel Heward, owner-manager of Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. Thank you, Joel. Thank you for all you and your staff do. And they believe that every life is worth remembering, and they want to exceed your expectations in the service that they conduct for you. Please remember, they're located at 710 6th Street in Rupert. The number to call, 436-5636. Always upholding the highest of ethical standards with unquestioned integrity, working for you and your family. Hanson Mortuary. A gentleman that has, in the past, stopped in and been on our program live and direct right here in our studio, and I have the utmost respect for, and I mean that, underline utmost and respect, for his abilities to write about what's going on with guns and gun control, the United Nations, etc., some of the scary, sinister things that are happening, is a man from Utah called Joe Wolverton. Good morning, Joe. How are you?
He didn't answer his phone.
You're kidding me.
Nope, with the voicemail all times.
Well, if you would keep trying to get him, I would appreciate it, because he should be there. That's the only number that I have for him. And Deanne's going to do a little checking for us, too, to make sure we can try to get him. Okay.
Okay, I'll continue to try.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Evidently, Joe's not on the line, and we'll try to reach him. Joe Wolverton in that blue book right there, Deanne. Look from the back of the pages forward and see if we have the right number for him, and we'll keep trying to reach him. Until then, give me a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd like to hear what you have to think. You know, I'm still miffed about this trip to China with Michelle Obama, taxpayer funded. What really is the reason? I mean, I'd like to know why they have to go, why they have to take part in a special trip. It's not for the president. It's not for the leaders of China. It's not for any negotiations. It's not for any treaties or any discussion about anything going on in the world with the economy or the dangers of North Korea or anything else. It's for the First Lady, her mama, and 2 kids, and then all the other security people that we have to pay for. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. I'm not sure why you can't get hold of Joe, but he spoke here in Twin Falls, a little over a year ago, and really laid it out there was what's going on. There's 2 projects I've worked on. I said if we ever give up our guns, you look at all the refugees that have come to Twin Falls, and you talk to them, and you find out the first thing that they were disarmed, and then it was all over. As soon as they got the guns, by whatever means, hook by crook, and believe me, they've got lots of ways of doing it. Like, if you want to see your children again, you give up your guns. They use every tactic in the book, and I'm sure they're going to try to do it again. The socialists and Marxists, what have you, never come up with any original ideas. They just use the same ones over and over.
I agree.
And we've all prayed to it, That's the sad part about it.
Here's something else, and I've got another one waiting, and I think it might be Joe, Adrian, but a point that needs to be made here this morning is that even some of the Democrats are starting to think about how bad the Surgeon General nominee might be, Vivek Murtha, because of his anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment stance. The chickens are starting to come home to roost even with the Democrats, and they may rescind his name for the Surgeon General.
Well, I'll tell you, people, if we give up our guns under any pretext, it's all over, because that's why Obama's trying to use a backdoor approach to get guns, either have smart bullets or have the Homeland Security buy up so much ammunition that it's not available for anybody else. The Second Amendment's what it is. Yep. And the people, get it out and read it.
All right, well.
And anyway, I'll let you go, and I hope that's Joe on the phone.
I do too, Adrian. Thank you so much. God bless you. Caller number 2, if that's Joe Wolverton, God bless you. Is this Joe?
No, Zeb is Carl.
Oh, Carl. Well, you're just as important. Go ahead.
for those of you who have sciatic nerve problems,
I do.
What you do, you've got two muscles on each cheek of the bum, and under those are glutamus minimus and glutamus maximus, and right between them is a little valley. If you get on a firm surface and put a golf ball there and lay on it, it will trigger that. And I'll tell you right now, the first time you do that, it's going to hurt like everything. I found out the first time that I was triggered that it is possible to levitate.
Really?
But if you'll do that and you'll trigger that nerve, that pain will go away.
All right, now hold it. Stop right there. Tell me again and explain it to me. I lay down on my back, right?
Right. You
All right.
put a golf ball right in that little valley between those two muscles.
Okay, gotcha. And stay on my back, right?
Right.
Okay.
And just roll on it just a second. You'll feel it trigger, and when it does, it'll come on like gangbusters.
Oh, my.
That's all you need to do.
Oh, really?
And then do that on the other side if that hurts.
Uh-huh.
If it don't hurt, don't bother. But when I was doing massages, I did that to people who had sciatic problems, and even though the first time I did it, it really hurt. After that, it started hurting less and less.
Well, I'm supposed to be going in Friday morning for an injection and try that. And believe me, I'm writing down pineapple. I'm writing down golf balls. I'm going to try anything, so I appreciate it.
Okay. Or get a good massage therapist, and he can lay on your tummy and just reach in there and touch that. And that's all you have to do.
Okay.
And the pain will go away. Now, it'll come back maybe the next day. Well, if it does, do it again. And once you get doing this, if you'll do it every day before you get out of bed, if you've got a little firm bed, it'll just go away.
Okay, well, I certainly hope you're right. Carl, God bless you, man. I appreciate your call.
You're welcome.
All right.
I want you to have a fantastic day.
I will. I'm going to go out and get a golf ball right after it's over. Thanks. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it a lot. Hey, calls are welcome. I do not know what happened to Joe Wolverton. We're trying to find him. I know Gina's trying to call. Deanne's trying to call. We can't get an answer. I don't know if there was a circumstance that came up that he's always been fairly reliable, that he'd be on the program and ready to go, and something must have come up, so we'll certainly keep trying to get his number. In the meantime, I need your calls, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587, and we'll talk about any subject that comes to mind this morning. Don't forget, when it comes to life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all your protection and kind of an umbrella to make sure that you're taken care of, you know the people to call. Yes, Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Dean and Todd, very dedicated to serving you. Number to call, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Well, before I take your call that I know is coming in, I want to remind you, too, there's going to be one great big farm sale this Thursday starting at 10:30 in the morning at 1200 North, 200 East of Rupert. It's the Don Taylor Farms Auction. This is going to be quite a farm sale. And lunch will be available. Musser Brothers Auctioneers and Real Estate putting this on with a live simulcast bidding available, too. Hey, this is going to be quite a sale. They've got everything over there. All kinds of different tractors. They got big balers, swathers, they got grain equipment, loaders and backhoes, semi-tractors, stackers, trailers, 10-wheel trucks. They've got it all. This is going to be a great farm sale. Don Taylor Farms Auction this Thursday, the 20th at 10:30 in the morning, 1200 North, 200 East of Rupert, managed by Musser Brothers Auctions and Real Estate. Going to be a ripping good sale. We just had words that 2 people have died. One has been pulled out of the wreckage alive from the helicopter, and the helicopter either hit or was near the Space Needle in Seattle. and it hit 2 cars on the ground. So basically, if any more information comes across the wire, we'll get that to you as soon as possible. But a tragedy in Seattle this morning by the Space Needle. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Gina, did you get any more reports on that? Deanne's been following that story over here.
Let's see here. I just pulled it up, and it says 2 killed as news helicopter crashes beside Space Needle.
Right.
Emergency personnel immediately rushed to the scene. 2 cars were struck in the crash. 1 man could be seen running from one of the cars with his sleeve on fire as he was extinguished by officers on the scene. Huge flames and plumes of black smoke poured from the burning wreckage. Fuel gushing from the wreckage caught fire and burned for a block from the crash of the scene. The Seattle Fire Department said 2 people were found dead in the wreckage. Fire crews were able to extinguish the flames within a half hour, and traffic was diverted in the area.
You know, I'll tell you something, Gina. I know that area very well. I've been there many times.
Yes.
And one thing that has always bothered me, whether it's the Space Needle in Seattle or whether it's downtown Manhattan in New York, you know, with the Empire State Building and everything, you see a congregation of various news choppers flying around and over the city many times. Now, you saw this happen with 911. Remember the coverage on 911 with all the helicopters and all the airplanes that were overhead?
I remember. Mm-hmm.
And I remember vividly a Fox News correspondent that was in the middle of a broadcast after 911, and he looked up and stopped in the middle of his broadcast, and he goes, these were his words, "Good God, I hope they don't hit each other." And there were so many helicopters and so many planes that evidently had just congregated to that one spot. I find it amazing that we haven't had more tragedies like this.
I know. I'm pulled up another story, and this is from MyFox 8 out of Seattle, and they're reporting that the helicopter went down at 7:40 this morning.
Oh, my.
It crashed into 3 cars. A 37-year-old male was taken to Harborview Medical Center. 2 people died.
Oh, my.
And the helicopter actually belonged to Como News, which also partnered with King 5 News.
I have quite a few friends, honestly, that work for that station.
Yeah.
And, boy, it runs a chill up your back. But, you know, did it say anything as to why they were covering a certain story or why they were in the area or region that they were with the helicopter?
It does not say. It does not say why they were actually there. Maybe they were just doing a traffic report because they do a lot of traffic reports for downtown Seattle. And so that is going to be my assumption. However, that is my assumption, and I can't actually verify that at this point in time.
You know, and I want to give kudos to somebody that was Johnny on the spot to help us get that information, and that was my wife, first and foremost. Yes. I appreciate that. She was checking on that. But that Seattle area, or any area, downtown metropolis, Los Angeles, Portland, Oklahoma City. I mean, there was almost a tremendous and tragic wreck over Oklahoma City a couple of years ago with a couple of helicopters. It can happen anywhere.
It really can. And you know, when you're out doing the news and stuff, one person is actually, you know, flying the helicopter while the secondary person is running the camera and reporting the news. And so, who knows? It does not say if there was something else in that area, if there was another aircraft in that area, or maybe they just got too close to the Space Needle. Who knows?
You know, there's so many things that are such a tragedy, and I've often wondered, especially when we were up on top of the Empire State Building in New York, my wife and I, the last trip to New York, you see all these helicopters, and you see, you know, the wide open spaces, supposedly, but you think about the airspace over a major metropolitan city and all the usage of the small private planes and all the helicopters, all the news helicopters, all the government helicopters, everything that's going on. And it absolutely amazes me as to why there aren't more tragedies like this.
I'm just glad that there's not more tragedies like this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing with the airspace and it's not as wide open as people think it is. And boy, you get these guys, like you stated it very succinctly, the pilot, and he could have had his attention drawn away by the photographer of a respective story, as the photographer literally is seatbelted in and hanging out sometimes to get some of the best shots, and he could have had his attention diverted. There might have been something else there, including the Space Needle itself, and bang, it's a great concoction for a tragedy.
Yeah, I'm checking multiple stories, and no story as of yet is saying why it actually crashed.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep continuing to post this or look at this, and I'll actually post a link up on your Facebook page for people to look at.
And for people to get on the Facebook page, tell them what they have to do.
Yeah. Go to either two different things. Just go to ZebBell.com and click on the Facebook widget, and it'll take you right to Zeb Bell's Facebook page.
Calls are welcome and appreciated. Again, I apologize. It was nothing that we did or didn't do. Joe Wolverton was scheduled to come on and talk about the United Nations Gun Treaty, be that as it is. And we had him scheduled at 9:06 this morning, and evidently he had to make other changes in our plans, and we'll try to get him scheduled for another time next week about that same subject. So, while we're waiting, I would appreciate a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You know, I want to brag a little bit about Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, and the great staff that they have there, and all the wonderful products for your home beautification and your comfort. They have all the carpet in various stages, you know, like good carpet, really better carpet, and great carpet. They've got it all in your budget so that you can pick out just what you need. And, of course, they've got all the vinyl flooring, and they've got the very best of mattresses and bedroom sets, all of this along with all their furniture and all the accessories at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. They're celebrating their 67th anniversary, and they are waiting to serve you. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. You stop in and see those great folks today. All right. Excuse me once again. Apologize for clearing my throat on the air. I think we've figured out what's causing all the hoarseness in my throat over the last couple of months. It's all the various medications that they've got me on for the healing of that leg and the surgery and everything else that I'm on. And my voice sometimes suffers for it, so bear with me on some of these things if you would. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. There was an excellent dissertation and explanation of why Obama should definitely sign for the Keystone Pipeline in the USA Today newspaper yesterday. And the USA Today newspaper is not exactly a right-wing conservative newspaper. As a matter of fact, just the opposite. But they had an interview. There was a two-page front page and second page in the money section. They had an interview with Joe Oliver, Canadian Minister of Natural Resources, on why, absolutely why, Obama should sign for the Keystone Pipeline right now. There's not an excuse available. There's not any excuse available for Obama not to sign the Keystone Pipeline. Everything environmentally has been passed on by any and all groups. And the cost factors and the job availability, 42,000 jobs, there is no excuse other than partisan politics against Progress for America, which Obama seems to lean towards, is going to stop this thing. And all I say is, Obama, please, for once in your administration, do what's right for America, get off your social left stool, and stop dragging your gull shoes and sign the Keystone Pipeline. Every American should be outraged as to why this thing hasn't been signed before this, why we're seeing increases at the pump when we don't need to, and why this government is leaning towards the environmentalists and basically bending to their wants and needs. There's no excuse for this. Obama, sign for the Keystone Pipeline. All right, calls are welcome. Just excuse me a minute. Pardon the throat. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call, and we're going to, in a few moments, get Amber Barno on the program for this morning. But right now, I want to remind you where the fun is sold. That's at Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley, open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 9 to 6. And I've mentioned to you that right now is time to snow check your new snow machine. That's right, you can personalize your new snow snow machine with $500 down, and it's going to get the machine you want and the color you want, the options you want, and customize your sled to suit your riding style. All of this right now with Snow Check going on at Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Don't forget all the ATVs are in there. Oh, boy, if they got the ATVs. And a great parts and service department. Those guys are the very best in the valley at taking care of you. So stop over and see them today where the fun is. So let's ride Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Really good folks. Gina, before we get Amber Barno on the air, is there any more of an update to that tragedy up in Seattle? Anything more you want to add to that?
I've been checking a lot of the news sources, and there's not much else to add at this point in time. I did post a link up to the Facebook page, and of course, the helicopter is owned by the Como television station, and they partnership up with King 5. One person injured with burns, a 37-year-old male. Two people have died at the scene, but and 3 cars may have been involved in that crash, but we're still not sure as to why the helicopter crashed. So as soon as I find that out, I will let you know.
You know, given the location and everything else, it's absolutely amazing, and I'll underline that word, that there weren't more ground pedestrians that were hurt and injured.
Right there by the Space Needle. Very, very scary. Luckily, not too many people were injured, but still no word yet as to why the actual helicopter crashed.
Okay. We're going to get Amber Barno on the air with us in just a moment. Just let me know when she's ready to go. I'd appreciate that. And we still have time for another call or two. Give me a jingle. By the way, I want to remind you also that, and I'll be telling you more about this as the days go by, the Trinity Lutheran Church over in Eden is going to have a special Jews for Jesus. God commanded it. Israel celebrated it. Jesus fulfilled it. Christ in the Passover. And this is going to take place on Thursday, April 10th at 7 p.m. at the church at 1602 East, 1100 South of Eden. And for more information about this, please call 825-5277. Are we all set over there, Gina?
I'm getting her on the phone now.
As we speak. Okay, we're going to have a young lady with the Concerned Veterans for America. And that's going to be Amber Barno is going to be on the program with us in just a minute, so stand by. And later on in the program, don't forget Dr. History. And then at 10:30 this morning, we have a young man coming on the program by the name of Tawe Baisolo. I know that sounds really like a funny name, but believe me, I had a long time practicing how to say it yesterday. He was just featured on Fox News a couple of days ago. And he's going to be on our program talking about the youth in America and the millennial attitude towards Obama. So we're going to find out more about that at 10:30 this morning. Right now, we have with us a United States Army Kiowa helicopter pilot. This young lady served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Good morning to Amber Barno. Amber, how are you?
Good morning. Good. I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, it's a real treat to have you on my program this morning. Before I go any further, give us a little background as to your military service to the United States and why you're on my program this morning.
Well, I'm a former OH-58 Delta Kiowa Warrior helicopter pilot. I served in the Army for just under 8 years, and I deployed to Iraq in 2005 and then Afghanistan in 2008, where I was stationed with the 101st Airborne Division. And now I'm a military advisor at Concerned Veterans for America.
Now, what is your capacity with Concerned Veterans for America? What basically is your job with them?
Well, I'm a military advisor to them, so I do a lot of work. For instance, what we're going to talk about with the Department of Veterans Affairs and the lack of accountability that we've seen throughout the years, especially in the recent years. And we also deal with focusing on the debt. We're over $17 trillion in debt. And then how a lot of all of these issues are affecting America, because what we believe is preserving everything that we fought for to defend this nation, everything that our families have sacrificed for. We believe in preserving everything that our nation was founded on.
Well, you know,
that's why we focus on some of these core issues.
Believe me, I'm really interested in what our conversation is going to entail this morning. I had Pete Hegseth on my program a couple of times, and really nice gentleman. But you know, the one thing that has really bothered me, Amber, is that of all the books that I've read, all the people I've talked to that have come back and had serious debilitating injuries, and they've had kind of a same chain link experience that they're not getting taken care of the way they should be. There seems to be a disregard with the VA about some of their caseloads and how these people are being taken care of, our heroes coming back from the war. What are your thoughts? Is the VA really been sloppy and slovenly as far as taking care of our soldiers?
They have been, and it's very inconsistent. You talk to one person in one part of America, and they may have had a great experience with great service, and then you talk to another, and they got the runaround. They're involved in the backlog. It's inconsistent care, so it's that's a problem as well. You can't have a VA that's good in Washington, D.C., and then terrible in some of these more remote areas. It needs to be consistent across America. So it's really gone from being a customer service-oriented department that it was created and intended for to assist our veterans after they come home from war or separate from service. And it's really turned into this problem of deeply, systematically burden for veterans when they come home and have to deal with some of these issues.
Well, Amber, let me ask you this question. Let's break this down a little bit. How, in the story that really was atrocious to me, was the one where they got so far backlogged that a supervisor told one of the underlings, just disregard the files and basically get rid of them. I mean, how do you get that far behind? How do you get that unorganized that you basically are getting rid of files of human beings that have served this country?
I know, and that's one of the problems. Where is the integrity? Where is the service of you helping those who have defended our freedoms? And so it's just, it's sort of a lack of concern or care for, they're just treating it as some random job and understanding sort of what's behind it. As far as who they are employed to serve. So I think it's just very unfortunate that our veterans have to deal with government bureaucracy like this. It's ridiculous. The VA, it's not a funding issue. They've got the money, the assets, the resources, the personnel. It's drastically growing in size, and they continue to say, there's not enough money. Money is always the blame, right? Like, give us more money and our problems will be fixed. But that's actually not the problem. They've had it. They always receive 100% of what they ask for in recent years as far as their budget goes. And the problem is management accountability. There is none. People can't get fired at the VA when they don't do their job, or even worse, when they mess things up, as in they are getting rid of people's records, or they can't manage the backlog, or in some instances, people have died because of their medical care at the VA hospital.
All right, now I'm just absolutely livid over this, and I don't think you'll find anybody more supportive of our military, our men and women that are fighting for my freedoms so I can sit here in my ranch office with this broadcast. I absolutely will stand up for our military. How in the world can any business, I don't care if it's a grocery store, I don't care if it's a clothing store, I don't care if it's the VA and the people that are supposed to be working in the records department, how can you let a system like this get so run down and so absolutely ill run that you're having to throw away files of human beings that need help? I don't understand this.
Yeah, it's really gotten out of control as far as the claims backlog goes. They're still working on about a 99% paper system. Instead of, it's 2014, everything is digital, everything's electronic, but you go and you file a claim with the VA and you're still pushing paperwork around. It's an old system. They haven't been able to adapt And unfortunately, our veterans are the ones that are having to suffer the consequences of it.
Walk me through, Amber, so that my audience and myself can understand. A soldier comes back from Afghanistan and is wounded. Let's say it's a severe leg injury, etc. And walk us through the process of what he, his family, or his superiors have to do to get him help.
Well, if it's severe, like an amputee, if they have like a leg amputee or something, they're, I'm guessing, are going to be medically retired. So it's a little bit different than someone who comes home and, say, has a service-connected disability from something that they received on combat in deployments, but not as severe.
I see.
So I'll do a less severe injury. Say you jumped out of a helicopter and you landed wrong and you broke your leg, and you still, suffer from pain and injuries.
Mm-hmm.
When you come home, you might file for a disability claim because it was connected to your time in the military. And you then do the paperwork. You have to show all of your medical history and proof that it's actually connected to your time in the military. And it's this big, long, drawn-out process. And then your packet gets sent to a review board, and they review everything. They have procedures on how they come up with an assessment. And then you get given a rating based upon your injuries. It doesn't just have to be one injury. It can be a bunch of them. But then you get a rating on whether or not you have a service-connected disability.
Mm-hmm.
And then you may or may not receive compensation for that injury or not. But that's what is taking so long, is getting that answer. So people, the VA standard is six months, 180 days from your day of separation. But that's the deal with the backlog, is there's hundreds of thousands of people just waiting to hear the answer. So they're basically in limbo, saying, am I service connected or not? Because what comes into play, if you get, depending upon your rating, is you might get specific medical benefits, you might get actual monetary compensation. So you will receive different care depending upon what it is. And so instead, these people are having to wait much longer past that 180-day VA-imposed deadline, but it's what we're trying to get reduced.
So basically, if I interpret everything you said, and that was very well said for the last few moments, if it's a life-threatening amputation or head injury or something when you come back to the United States, those cases probably will get frontline care and get looked at. But if it's something like a twisted leg, a back injury, a debilitating injury to the neck or something that's a recurrent type thing, you might live in the lost file category for years.
For years, yes. If you have a severe injury that requires hospitalization or something when you come home, like say you were injured in an IED blast or something like that, and you come home and you're an amputee, yes, you do go through essentially a different process. You still are dealing with the VA, which I've spoken to many people who have a whole bunch of issues with the aftercare as well. So it's just a government-run bureaucracy that it hinders the ability for people. It is such a headache. I wish that some of the people who and we appreciate all the people who do care and want to get this straightened out, but it's if anyone could live, the life of a veteran for a day who had to go through the VA and deal with this, I think a lot of eyes would be open.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Let's just assume, I was reading the book. I've read a lot of these books from various Navy SEALs that have come back and other people with the Army and the Marines. But the book that stood out the most to me recently was a book called The Trident, and it was written by Navy SEAL Jason Redman. And he was talking about the debilitating injuries that he had coming back and the different surgeries and everything. And I'm not quoting from the book, I'm giving you a rough synopsis, but he talked about how some of the doctors at the various VA hospitals really didn't know what they were doing, and at that time, the patient, the soldier, had the ability to opt out of that care and go to a private concern and still be covered. Is that the truth?
I am not quite sure. I think it depends if you live in a remote area where you, within a certain distance, like you're out of driving distance essentially to a VA care clinic area. I think there's probably some system where, yes, you can still go get care outside of the VA. They might do referrals as well. So I'm not exactly sure about that.
Well, we're not actually sitting here condemning the VA in its entirety or as its whole. What we are saying is that there are some real bad apples that are in the barrel that aren't doing their job, and it's almost impossible to do a cleaning house and get better people. Is that basically what we're saying?
That is. There's a need for the VA. It needs to be better. Our veterans deserve better. We need to clean house with leadership, especially. They're not managing the departments well. And instead of being held accountable and saying, look, you were tasked with this job, you haven't been able to make it happen, or it's gotten worse, or people have died under your care, you have to be accountable. There is not going to be change within the VA until people are held accountable. And that's why at Concerned Veterans for America, we've created a VA accountability project. So if people want to go get more information, they can go to VAaccountabilityproject.org, and it outlines the issues, the solutions, what needs to be done, and how people can get involved and help.
You know, the thing that bothers me, Amber, is that using you as an example, you've served our country, you've done so much to protect our freedoms, and you put your life on the line. And these men and women come home, and I don't care if it's a twisted knee, I don't care if it's an amputated leg, I don't care what the circumstance is, they should be given a priority. They should be given a thank you so much for your service look from these people that work at the VA, that they should be proud to say, I'll take care of your file and you'll hear from us in a week. But this stacking of the files and basically not being committed to serving our military, boy, it's a good thing I'm not running it, because they'd all get pink slips and we'd start over.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But unfortunately, what we're seeing at the VA is they claim that their accountability process works, and it's actions speak louder than words. You can sit there and talk all day long about how great of a place the VA is and how management is doing their jobs and taking care of people, but the people who are on the service side of it, they get the real VA. They're not sitting in some, shiny office where they're actually receiving the care, and so they're on the receiving end, and they see what it's really, really like. And so the higher ups at the VA can sit there and talk all day long about how they are disciplining people who aren't doing their jobs, but in reality it's not. The story just broke recently about the doctor in Georgia who oversaw his wing of the hospital, and 3 people were killed, and he stepped down. He said that he was going to resign, and they moved him from his position, but he was still on the payroll, which was over $275,000 a year.
Oh, my.
He was still making that paycheck. So that's the kind of accountability that the VA claims is working.
All right, so how, and pardon my ignorance on this, Amber, so how do we force their hand? How does the general public and you and others force their hand into saying, okay, wait a minute, you are arrogant, you are very self-centered, you are not doing the job, and we want a review of this particular VA and why the files are stacking up. How do we go about making changes? Do we go through our senators and our congressmen? Do we stage protests and walk in the door and demand that they do their job better? Really, what is the answer?
Yes, everything that you just mentioned. Concerned Veterans for America just did a national day of action where we were asking people to write handwritten letters the old-fashioned way, sort of similar to the way VA does things, to write handwritten letters to their senators and congressmen demanding change, that we will not accept our veterans being treated this way by the VA. And also Representative Miller and Senator Rubio, they've introduced a piece of legislation called the VA Management Accountability Act, and that basically what it does is it allows senior level executives in the VA to be fired, basically.
Mhm.
Right now it is extremely hard. You have to have a paperwork trail a mile long, and you have to check so many boxes before you can ever essentially discipline someone or make them step down from their job. This bill, which CVA supports, it's going to make some serious changes in the VA. So people will start getting held accountable. They're going to have to start making sure their particular hospitals or departments or whatever section they're in charge of are actually doing their job and producing. So that piece of legislation will be good. And then also just awareness. The American people need to be aware of these issues because, like you said, most people are outraged when they find out some of the issues that veterans are having to deal with. But you can't be outraged if you aren't aware of the issues. So we're trying to make more of the American public aware.
Well, I will do anything I can to create awareness. And again, we're not condemning. I don't think you're saying this. You're not condemning any and all VA outlets or hospitals. But what you are saying is the ones that are causing the problems, the ones that are so lackadaisical, they need to be cleaned up because our veterans, literally, some have gone 18 months to 2 years, and then they found out that their files have been destroyed and their lives are a shambles. This is nothing but a real concern for the wives and the husbands and the family as to wondering why they're not getting medical treatment, and that is totally unacceptable in this United States of America. Let me ask you one final question, and I'm very vocal about this. I don't like the Obama administration, and I'm very vocal about it, and I know other administrations have had their faults also. But I see an administration that is anti-military with the cuts to the budget, etc. Does this problem with the VA go right to the top, and he, Obama himself, could do something to help clean this mess up?
Well, as with any leadership issue, yes, I think that Obama should have a serious sit-down with the Secretary of the VA, Eric Shinseki, and say, look, you aren't managing this department that I appointed you to, and it's time for some change. I think that he should recognize the issues with the VA that we're having and really make it a priority. And we're not seeing that. He's
Absolutely.
still letting Shinseki handle everything, and obviously Shinseki isn't able, or it's gotten out of control. That I would like to see President Obama make the issues at the VA a priority.
So in other words, I think to recap the whole thing, the VA in many parts of the country and their lack of service to our servicemen and women is turned into kind of a good old boys network. I'll show up for work today if I want to, and if I don't, you're going to have to suffer because you're just nothing more than an underling and I am in control. That's kind of the attitude that they purvey sometimes.
It is, and it's really, really unfortunate that they get to live the good life, and then a lot of veterans are suffering because of it.
Absolutely. Amber, anything that we can ever do on this program or any more amplification of this subject that you want, don't hesitate to call me. I'll do anything I can to support you and the Concerned Veterans for America. Amber Barno, United States Army Kiowa Warrior helicopter pilot, served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. God bless you. We really do appreciate you coming on the program this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll look forward to having you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting lady right there, Amber Barno, and talking about the pitfalls. And you've heard this. It's been on the news. It's been all over about the tape that was found recently of a superior at the VA saying, well, just discard the files. Get rid of them. Throw them away. We're backlogged. They'll have to reapply. We'll just get rid of those files. We just can't do this for everybody. Well, that's terrible. That's terrible. And there was quite a bit written in that book, and I'm going to be having Jason Redmond back on, the Navy SEAL that wrote the book called The Trident. I talked to him in Virginia Beach, Virginia last week, and I had him on the program about 6 months ago, and I'm going to have him back on the show here in possibly 2 weeks. He had mentioned, too, some of the pitfalls that are going on with the VA and the lack of service to our military. And I will do anything I can on this program to amplify those problems and try to clear them up. It is time for the weather this hour, and this hour the weather is brought to you by our dear friends at Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. If you've got a collection of firearms and you want to sell them, let Red's Trading Post sell them for you online, and they can have the word go out all over the world, literally. They are the best, and believe me, they also give top dollar on trade-in on firearms. Nobody gives you more for your guns on a trade-in than Red's Trading Post. They're located at 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Red's Trading Post, the best of guns, ammo, and accessories. Here now is Michael Rogers' weather.
I'm Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. The wind is starting to die down. We've got nicer weather, nothing like yesterday. We're going to see temperatures on the cooler side as a result of being the backside of a cold front. 57 for the high today. Make that 59 for the high today. And make that 31 for the overnight low. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Brought to you again by Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. We're going to go over to Gina real quick. And Gina, any other updates on that tragedy up in Seattle? I thought I'd take the remaining moments here and talk to you about that.
Well, there is a little bit of an update there saying that the helicopter crashed just after takeoff. And according to reports, it lifted off of the Como helipad at about 7:40 this morning when it crashed. And reports are saying that the blades only made one rotation, and then it apparently crashed on its side.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so apparently a mechanical malfunction within the helicopter itself.
So it never did get to a high elevation, is that correct?
That's correct. The Seattle Fire Department said that 2 people were killed, at least 3 people were set on fire in the crash. One person was in the car but managed to escape. He is now in critical condition at Harborview Medical Center.
Oh, my.
Other than that, that's the latest information right now is that the helicopter crashed just after takeoff, and the blades apparently only made one rotation before it fell.
Okay, well, just another tragedy. By the way, I was going to have you comment on that, Amber Barno. Very interesting young lady that is a former helicopter pilot for our armed services over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. I've had many people call me and talk to me about how horrendous some of the absolute lack of paperwork and coordination with the VA is, not at all locations, but in many, and how the numbers of our military that are coming home with wounds or coming home with debilitating injuries, they're not being taken care of. And I find that if this was a private business, can you imagine the door would be open and you'd be kicking their butts out the back door and welcoming new people that could get the job done efficiently?
But now we're dealing with the federal government, which if you work for any sort of federal entity, it takes the act of God, literally, to get you fired. And I honestly think that our military members should be treated so much better than what they are with the VA. They should honestly have the red carpet rolled out for them as soon as they get home. Seriously. And they should be offered any sort of service that they need, right there. I mean, immediately. And so I'm not going to bash on the VA, but I do think that there needs to be a major overhaul.
Well, it's not necessarily bashing. If somebody's not doing the job and somebody's file, like we saw the tapes on the news a couple of weeks ago where they had said that, a supervisor had told one of the employees, we're so backlogged, and it's been over a year on those, just take those files and destroy them. That is not the United States of America. Treating its veterans veterans the way they should.
Well, you should not be destroying any sort of file. I mean, obviously, if you're not in the age of 2014 where everything is backed up onto a hard drive, you do not destroy paper files at all, because that is your, that's your trail. Well, you have to have it.
And the other thing is, the once you're with the government, you're there till heck freezes over, basically. Uh-huh. That's a system that's got to change, because I think if you're dead wood and, quite frankly, not doing the job, you should be drop-kicked right out the front door, and somebody else should be brought in that can be efficient. That's the taxpayers' money at work.
And I've seen this with other government agencies where, if you've got too many complaints with one specific person in one specific job, they'll just move that person to a different department. They don't get fired. They don't get written up. There's no sort of reprimand. They just get moved to a different position with the same pay and everything else. Well, that makes no sense to me, because if that happened here in our job, geez, we'd be gone in a heartbeat.
No kidding, and rightfully so. Rightfully. I got to do a quick commercial, and then I'll be right back. Don't forget the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Today, they're going to have a half a French dip sandwich, along with super salad, fries, or tots. It's going to be delicious. It always is. They had a lot of fun with a great meal yesterday on St. Patrick's Day. You can always stop in and enjoy the food, and always the great service at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Caller, I'm sorry, I'm flat out of time right now for this hour. I've got to get to the ABC News. I'll be back in 6 with Dr. History. Don't go away. Good morning. Welcome back. Hour number 3. Blue sky. And not much of a wind out there right now, thank goodness. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and of course some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and our friends at Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Don't forget to call Kelly, 734-6969. On Thursdays, we have a segment called School Days in Cassia County, and it's brought to you by 2 wonderful businesses in the Mini-Cache area, A Child's World at 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley. And don't forget, right now at A Child's World, best place to shop for all the birthday gifts, and the gift wrapping is always free. They've got all the new spring clothes arriving daily, and they've got all the baby items. They've got the baby shoes. They've got it all, including it's the home of Cherokee and Dickey Scrubs, too, over at A Child's World, 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley. And also Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. The number to call, 677-8888. Don't forget, each month over 100 cases are performed right there at the Ambulatory Surgery Center, whether it's your tonsils, eye surgery, arthroscopic knee surgery, dental surgery, colonoscopies. They're there to serve you at the Ambulatory Surgery Center, 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley, 677-8888. Well, it is Tuesday, and that means we get a chance to have a visit with a good friend of ours that's going to be on the air in just a second, and that is the one, the only, Dr. History. Good morning.
Good morning, Zeb. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm just glad the wind's not blowing like it was yesterday.
I got to tell you something. I just thank the good Lord above that it wasn't any worse than what it was. I know a lot of people suffered home damage. I know a lot of people had trees uprooted. I know a lot of people had roofs damaged. I know that unbelievable the way one of my shorter haystacks just seems like it took a whirlwind and tipped that thing and tore it all apart.
Well, like I say, it was bad. I know there were semis tipped over, and there was a lot of damage done yesterday.
Absolutely. Well, you got through it, and I got through it, and most of our listeners did. But what is on your plate this morning to tell us about?
Well, I've got an excerpt from a book by a guy who spent about 20 years among the Indians.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to talk about some of his observations among the Indians, and just going to go through there.
Okay, you go ahead. You have the floor.
All right. Well, whatever may be said of the Indians, whether they were fighting their own people or fighting the white man, you can't dispute that they were pretty much courageous. They were some brave guys. And from his first contact with the whites until the last roundup on the reservations, they proved themselves to be born warriors, born fighters, and, like I say, for the most part, they were very brave. And they usually hesitated to attack until he was sure that he had the advantage. But that only proved that he was also shrewd or smart as a brave. The white men had the best of modern weapons, while the Indians, for the most part, still depended on the old bow and arrow or an old rusty gun or a pistol that didn't have much ammunition. So, But when fighting with other Indians on equal terms as to the equipments of war, those that had the greatest courage, they won. So
they never did, and none of the tribes in history, and correct me if I'm wrong, but none of the tribes ever fought for second place.
Oh, no. No. You were either dead or you were number one.
There you go.
So, but, fighting was as natural to the Indians as hunting. They were fighting among themselves before the white man came, after he came, and so they had traditions of warfare that went back hundreds of years. With each other, as well as, of course, with the white men when they came. And when fighting among themselves, they had some kind of rude military codes and regulations. They held war councils, and they planned campaigns or raids. So they didn't just go into a blind. They had some plans. But it was not often that one Indian tribe surprised another, because the Indians instinctively feared an enemy on every side, and they were always on the alert. They had guards out. And before going on the warpath, a lot of them worked themselves into kind of a frenzy. They'd get into their so-called war dance, painted their face and their bodies, the war hoops. The old people and the young people, they kind of cheered them on and eagerly awaited their return with goods or captives or both.
A lot of people have told me they've seen you doing the same thing outside your office on Normal.
I only do that on really, really difficult patients.
I see.
But when the war party returned, its approach was announced by scouts, and the result of the adventure was related. Now, if the expedition had met with disaster, the names of the dead or captured were made known, and the women indulged in some pretty bad wailings and other signs of grief. Now, unless they were thoroughly crushed, the returning party did not admit defeat. But they had shouts of triumph. They brandished their weapons and their waving scalps or other trophies they might have taken. An imitation of the warlike scene was reenacted, and the exploits of the braves were rehearsed. If successful, the captives were sometimes spared and adopted into the tribe. Now, a captive man was rarely permitted to accompany a war party against their own people for obvious reasons.
Right.
I mean, the warriors, fearing that this guy, going against his own tribe, he's going to obviously try to escape and rejoin his tribe. So they wouldn't let him go against his own, but he would be part of their tribe, basically. So now, when they were condemned to torture and death, the sufferings of these captives were pretty bad. They had some pretty severe methods of tormenting these people, and kind of strangely, the women were kind of some of the worst as far as inflicting these tortures. And, of course, if the victim manifested an indication of weakness or cowardice, he was really treated badly. And a lot of times his suffering was prolonged and multiplied. Now, if on the other side, he was brave and bore his torture, pretty well, which they mostly did. It got the admiration of the tormentors and the tribe, and generally his bravery was rewarded by them putting an end to his sufferings a little quicker. So, but when the Indian first encountered white man's guns, they thought it was kind of a superstitious thing. They didn't know what to make of this, what they called artificial thunder and lightning. And anyway, as civilization advanced to the west, they gradually got their own guns and became more or less proficient in their use, but really not very, very good. But they would get them from different traders that came through. Now, next to taking the scalp of an enemy, the highest thing that an Indian could do was his success in stealing horses. Now, when the merits of a brave were recounted by others, how good he was as a thief was considered by his tribe as almost as well as his exploits in battle.
Really?
And there was, for the Indian, a double incentive for stealing a horse. Number one, it gained for him the admiration and the wealth at the same time, but the more horses he had, the richer he was. and the more influential he was with his people.
Mm-hmm.
So a brave warrior also had a bunch of horses. But the North American Indian was not noted for his inventiveness. They were pretty much satisfied to just kind of exist the way they had for hundreds of years. But there were several things that they invented that they were pretty ingenious in inventing that really never changed much. And that was the canoe, the moccasin, the snowshoe, the teepee, and the bow and arrow.
Got a question for you.
Okay.
And I've often wondered this. The moccasin. Okay, now that is not the warmest footwear you could ever wear. Did they have, the Indians in the old days, did they have like some kind of a stocking or something they put over their foot? I mean, my goodness, you'd freeze your feet off.
Well, if you recall looking at some of the moccasins in the wintertime, those moccasins were more like, I'd call it like a muckluck.
Yeah.
They came up onto the calf, and I believe they had some type of fur on the inside as well.
Okay, all right.
But, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute, but the Indians, they roamed all over the country, and they used the rivers and the lakes to get around, and so the old birch bark canoe was the best thing for getting around. It was strong. It could carry a lot of things over lakes and streams. It was lightweight, so if they came to a falls or something, they could just portage around the falls because it was pretty lightweight. And it was generally used in the north and the northwest. Now, in the western plains, there were no birch trees, so they used these boats they called bull boats.
Mm-hmm.
And those were basically like a big tub that was shaped over some willows, and a hide was stretched, a green hide was stretched over it, and then when it dried, it was a bull boat, and they looked very awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But they would actually leave the tail of the buffalo hide on, and they would actually tie 3 or 4 of them together, and sometimes they would use a horse to pull 4 or 5 or 6 of them across the river with their women and children and goods in them.
Well, now, wait a minute. Go back to the canoe for a minute, though.
Okay.
One can always say that maybe that wasn't the greatest invention ever that we got from the Indians, because if you ever tried to take care of one of those by yourself without tipping it over...
Actually, you're exactly right. One of those canoes, you just jump in one of those canoes that's not fiberglass and gotten from Cabela's. They're pretty tippy.
Oh, my.
So, the Indians, they got pretty skilled at taking care of those canoes. And the nice thing about the birch bark is if they were damaged, they were easy to repair because there was plenty of bark around, and they could actually carry sometimes several tons of freight besides paddlers and passengers. And they were used, of course, we know by the fur companies, the traders, the hunters, pioneers. So obviously they had to learn how to take care of a canoe as well.
Absolutely.
So, but the bull boat and the canoe, they were used extensively throughout the Indian tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the moccasin I mentioned, it was made of tanned deer skin and sewn with the sinews of the animals, and they'd use a awl or a sharp or bone or something sharp to make the holes. But if you think about it, in the summertime, a moccasin was elastic, it was soft, and but it protected their feet, but they could still climb, mountains and hills, and it was easy to make and easily mended.
Okay.
So, in the summertime, it wasn't too bad. Now, getting to the wintertime, move ahead, the snowshoe. Now, it was a necessity for Indians in the Northwest, obviously, because they had to travel through deep snow to hunt game. But I don't know if you've ever tried snowshoes, Zeb, but...
Let me ask you a question. Okay. How many guys on crutches have you seen walking on snowshoes?
That's why I threw that out there. But I have tried them, and these Indians could actually run with snowshoes on. Now, I found it difficult just to walk with snowshoes on.
That'd be like a cow trying... Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, so snowshoes, but they were very adept at running and, again, hunting, in the wintertime in deep snow.
Wow.
So, and really, you think about the snowshoes of today, they're really not much different than what they had years and years ago.
Okay.
Anyway, now, sometimes people have a picture in their mind of the stone war club as a weapon, and basically the only time a stone club would be any good is if your enemy was laying on the ground in front of you. So the clubs were common in Indian camps, but they weren't used in warfare. They were used to pound stakes in the ground and stuff like that. Now, it is true, however, that after a battle, sometimes the women would take one of those stone clubs and gently tap the heads of the enemy.
Gently tap the heads of the enemy.
Just to kind of finish them off, I guess. If
I
you want to say that.
Okay.
All right. So now some of the men actually started carrying a peculiar-looking club that had like nails in it or a long spike in it.
Oh, my.
But again, this was a club that they did not use in battle.
What was it for?
They so close. So they carried these mostly for ceremonial occasions, just to show. So they really weren't used that much now. And then, of course, we get to the tomahawk. Once guns came into play, the tomahawk really wasn't used that much in warfare. It kind of went by the wayside. But now, if by chance an Indian met another in hand-to-hand combat, the weapon of choice was the knife. Now, so if you had two Indians that were fighting, it was with knives, and they were the bloodiest. They would stab and slash each other, and usually one died, if not both. And in fact, there was one case where this fellow that is telling the story says that these two guys were fighting. They both died. He said he counted in one, had 8 stabs and 21 slashes.
Oh.
The other one had 8 stabs and 14 slashes.
Wow.
And they were both dead.
You know, the thing is, right there, you hear so much about today with all the bacteria and everything and the infections. Really, you don't hear too much about stories about people getting infections or staph infections in the Old West. Why not?
Well, you know, we've talked about medicine in the Old West with the Indians, and they had various things to treat burns and cuts and wounds, and some of the things we don't even know about today.
Well, did they, with their medicine men and everything, if they had one of the braves get cut in battle, did they know that how to stitch things up and sew things up?
They were very good at that. Now, I don't know about stitching, but I know that they used various things to prevent infection.
I see.
Better than, in some cases, better than we did as the white men. So, but, and again, one of the most important things that they carried, both men and women, was a knife. And the knife was inseparable. I mean, that was what they used for slaughtering animals, scalping their enemies, general purposes. And, you know, knives were kept sharp. They usually had handles that were decorated very nicely. And in the early days, the metal was difficult to find, but the white traders, they'd come by, and the Indians were able to get metal and make their own knives.
I wish I could get a blade on a knife like they did back in the old days, and they didn't have any of the fancy stuff to use.
No, they didn't, but you can imagine, and I don't know exactly how they did it, but they kept their knives very, very well, sharpened. And
right.
But now another thing they used was a lance, and this was used pretty effectively in battle because it was something they could throw. It was something they didn't have to get real close to the enemy with. And here again, they got iron or steel from white traders.
Right.
So now there's an old tradition that is kind of a false tradition that this guy talks about. He says it's claimed that some of the Indians used poisoned arrows. Now this is something that according to this guy anyway, that's kind of a false notion because, number one, if you try to get the poison or the venom from a rattlesnake, you may end up on the deadly end of that. And so if they ever did use poisoned arrows, it must have been pretty rare.
Now, we have, of course, I've got to jump in here and say this, we've seen Western movies that have shown, various Indian attacks, and the soldier gets an arrow in the arm, and all of a sudden it's a poison arrow, and boop, he's gone, that type of thing. So where did that rumor get started?
Well, it did happen on rare occasions, according to this author.
I see.
So, but, again, you watch Hollywood and TV, and it sounds like they were doing it all the time.
Well, what kind of poison did they use?
Well, he talks about rattlesnake poison, but I suppose there's maybe other things that they could have used that could have caused infection.
Huh, okay.
But then we get to the bow and arrow. This was a work of art. I mean, the shaft of the arrow usually varied in length depending on the tribe. And that's why sometimes some of these scouts, like Jim Bridger and these guys, they could come upon a massacre and they could say, well, this was the Apaches or this was the Comanches or whatever, depending on what the arrows were.
I see.
But the end of where the feathers were, that could be anywhere from 2 to 3 inches long to as much as a foot long. And I didn't realize that they would put feathers that long on an arrow.
You got to admit that right there, and I know we're running out of time, but you have to admire the mental ingenuity of anybody in years gone by that would sit down and they just decided how to make fire, and then all of a sudden, Muck Luck looks at Bad Luck and he says, let's make an arrow. I mean, they didn't know what an arrow was. How did they figure that out?
Well, and to get it to fly straight and true, and how did they figure out, okay, let's put some feathers on here to make it fly straighter. Now, and another thing is when an arrow went into you, you had a couple of choices here.
Oh, good.
Either to push it right on through or try to pull it out, which with the barbs on there, that wasn't a good thing to try to do.
And I thought my sciatic nerve hurt.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then the other thing is, the arrowhead was held in place by sinew, and if it stayed in there very long, that softened, and so you could pull the shaft out, but the arrowhead would stay inside of you.
Oh, how nice. Which
it did with Jim Bridger.
I see.
In fact, Jim had an arrowhead in his back for, several years, until, I can't remember who it was. He went to a rendezvous sometime, and there was a doctor there that cut it out of him.
Oh, my goodness. And I'm sure it was a gentle anesthetized operation.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what they used for anesthetizing, but I'm sure he drank a little of that.
Yeah.
But again, the bow of the bow and arrow was amazing. It was made out of hickory or willow or mesquite, and they were very strong.
Yeah, but there again,
to make them stronger.
There again, though, Doc, you got to admit that we could go on and on about this, and I wish we had more time. But you got to admit that where did the idea, the thought, the light bulb go on in somebody's mind 200, 300, 400 years ago to invent a bow and an arrow? Come on, now. I mean, that's really amazing.
It really is. And then, according to this author, for you and I to try to pull a bow back, pull the string back, you and I might get an inch, maybe 2 inches. The Indian would pull it back a foot or a foot and a half.
Wow.
So these were strong bows with, the bowstring was really strong. It was made of, again, with sinew. And the Indian also protected his wrist. And this is something I wondered about, too, because I don't think you ever see this in TV, but they had a wrist band, a leather band, so that if the bowstring hit their arm, it didn't rip their arm apart.
Oh, man, and that's what I do all the time.
Yeah. And now another thing is they weren't very good with firearms because they didn't practice.
Okay, we got a minute left.
Because, so they weren't very good. I know we're getting out of time here, but the one thing, the Indians, they used to practice battles, but it was kind of a sham battle where they would ride around, yell, and do all this, and it was more just for entertainment.
Oh, really?
Than anything. But these Indians were amazing on horses. They could take a horse, and all they had was a lariat attached to the bottom jaw of the horse, but they could make that horse just do anything they wanted. They could jump on and off the horse. They always got on the right side, or what we refer to as the off side.
Or the Indian side, yeah.
The Indian side, yeah. So, and of course in battle, they could get on either side, jump off and on as easily as you want to, but they were experts also, and I didn't know this either, but they were experts with a rope, with a lasso.
I didn't know too much about... I did know of one tribe, I think it was in the Southwest. I want to say the Comanches. I think were very adept at roping, but I'm not sure that's the right tribe.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure either, but they could catch an animal around the leg, the neck, or, any part, and they were good at it. And actually the men and the women were pretty good experts at throwing a rope, throwing a lasso.
You know, I'm going to have to stop you. I hate to.
Right. I'm done. I just finished.
Well, I'd really like to do some more on this because it's very interesting, and it just amazes me as to how somebody sat down one time at a fire and said, okay there, Tonto, we're going to invent a bow and arrow, and they went and did it. That's amazing. Listen, Dr. History, better known as Dr. Ken Turner, thank you. God bless you. I'm running late. I got to hurry, but thank you, and we'll look forward to next week, and I'm sure you've already got next week ready.
I may have.
Aha!
You have a good day, Zeb.
All right, see you later, buddy.
Okay,
thank you.
bye.
We're going to take a little break right now, and then we'll be right back with our next guest on Zeb at the Ranch. Don't go away.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you much. We're going to have our guest on for this half hour in just a moment. Stand by, but I want to remind everybody, Thursday's the great big Don Taylor Farms auction. You better believe it. It's going to start at 10:30, 1200 North, 200 East of Rupert, and it's managed by Musser Brothers Auctions and Real Estate. Call Randy for more information at 733-8700, and there'll be live simulcast bidding available. You better believe great sale. Lots of tractors and loaders and backhoes and big balers and swathers and grain equipment, along with trailers and farm vehicles and beat equipment, groundworking equipment. It's all there. Going to be a fantastic sale. Lunch will be available. Don Taylor Farms Auction this coming Thursday, March 20th at 10:30 a.m., managed by Musser Brothers Auctions and Real Estate. Don't miss it on Thursday. You know, Gina, before we get our guest on the air, I think what I'll do so that I don't have to interrupt our guest, I'd like to go through the weather forecast right now with Michael Rogers Weather, and it's brought to you this hour by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, the very best locally owned custom meat processor serving the Jerome and southern Idaho area for over 20 years. Always quality products, and they are selling taste one bite at a time. Scarrows Meats. Right now, here is Michael Rogers Weather.
I'm Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. The wind is starting to die down. We've got nicer weather, nothing like yesterday. We're going to see temperatures on the cooler side as a result of being the backside of a cold front. 57 for the high today. Make that 59 for the high today. And make that 31 for the overnight low. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
I'll tell you the best. Bringing you Michael Rogers Weather this hour. Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, 324-7657. Selling taste one bite at a time. Now, I'm going to introduce this young man, and I'm going to try to say his name, and if I'm wrong, I will expect him to correct me because I should say it right. He is an economics student at St. John's University in New York City and campus coordinator for Students for Liberty, and we say good morning to Tawe Baisolo. How are you?
Doing well, and yourself? And yes, you did say it correctly.
Do you know I've been practicing that since 6:30 this morning?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, you're very welcome, and thank you for coming on our program this morning. Tawe, I would like to, if you don't mind my addressing you by your first name, I'd like to talk to you a little bit this morning about young people in college. You know, I've been very critical of the young attitude and the young mindset in this country to where it seems like a lot of the younger people are with their hands out expecting the government and others to help provide the way and the means for them, but not you, not the group that you are with. And tell us, what are your thoughts about this administration and the gimme, gimme, gimme programs that they've got going?
Well, I think that the Obama administration is a symptom of a lot of things that have been going on in America for quite a while. I think starting really from FDR and moving forward after World War II, there's been an expectation almost for the government to provide for its citizens more than what originally was intended, and now more than it feasibly can, especially as the baby boomer generation starts to age. Specific to the administration, however, I think that there is now a large shift toward even more government programs and government assistance than we've seen in some time. And I definitely think it's a problem just because of the way that the finances are structured. We are going to have a huge problem with entitlement programs We're going to have a huge problem with the interest on the national debt. And we're going to have a huge problem with countries like China, who take a lot of our debt, don't necessarily need to because they're growing at such a rapid rate. China is going to be where you're going to see a lot of economic growth in the next couple of coming decades, along with countries like India. And Japan, soon enough, is going to have a lot of competition, and is also going to be in a lot of poor economic shape, so they can't take a lot of our debt either. So we're running into a problem where you have a country of people who expect and who have been raised to expect that the government should give them a lot of things that now it feasibly can't, and we're coming into a world where a lot of countries who necessarily would take the debt from us can't anymore.
Mm-hmm. Tawe, why is it that you have your head on straight and you can see the problems and pitfalls with a gimme, gimme, I want society, whereas we have so many young people and society itself with 47 million people on food stamps wanting more from the government? It's nothing more than buying votes for the Liberal Democratic Party, is it not?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that the main problem, though, is that the fact that the schools don't teach history or they don't teach economics when you're young in that way. At the very most, I know that I did take an economics course until I was a senior in high school, and that was an option for me to take the more advanced of the two courses offered. The lower course was more or less just a throwaway at that point, just to get people to graduate. But it becomes a problem, especially when young people are just taught history through the same sort of revisionist history of the government came, they saved everyone from the Depression. These work programs were put in there, not for political reasons, but purely out of benevolence of the government, and no one's ever taught another point of view. Mm-hmm. It absolutely is to buy votes, but the problem is that when you create a constituency of people who are reliant upon government programs, you create people who rationally should be opposed to any sort of budget cuts.
Right.
It's ridiculous to expect someone who has a government job to vote for a candidate who will do anything except for increase government spending.
Why is it that most of the universities and colleges across the country, I don't care if it's UCLA, I don't care if it's the University of Wisconsin, or if it's any school along the East Coast, why is it that they've become so liberalized and basically teaching and preaching the handout, you deserve it type attitude, instead of what you are espousing as standing up on your own 2 feet and being conservative and being very cost conscious of the debt that we're suffering and trying to get us out of a hole?
I think that it's just, it's a little bit of a symptom of a lot of the professors who are in college today, or a lot of the people who are protesting the Vietnam involvement, which personally I think that their adherence to get into military conflicts was quite good. But I think that the fact that they don't realize that that period in time where government loans were given out so much was much different from today. College costs a significant amount more than it used to. The value of the bachelor's degree is a lot lower, and people are sort of brainwashed. It's like this large circular problem that when you're in high school, you're taught that you should go to whatever college you want, no matter how much it costs, and you should just take out as much money as it costs to go there. And that's just not correct. I know a personal friend of mine who recently was admitted to an Ivy League school. I'm very proud of her. And she's going to one of these Ivy League schools, I'm sure, because she told me that there was more aid for her to get in there than it was for her to go to the other school that she got into, also Ivy League, but she didn't get the same amount of aid. And she was going to turn down, at least from what she had told me, perhaps that's not the decision she would have made in the end, but she had at least told me that she was considering not going to another Ivy League school because she wasn't getting the amount of aid. Mm-hmm. The average person wouldn't think like that, and I think that she's very smart for realizing that education is a piece of the puzzle as far as growing up and making your career, but the fundamental part of success is skills, and your skills cannot get developed correctly if you're so busy trying to pay off debt And in this economy where you can't find jobs nearly as easy as you used to, it's just not worth it sometimes, depending on your career situation, to take on so much debt.
Yeah,
I think that the college has been liberalized just by this long process of teachers coming in who are from a different generation and just supplanting the idea that you should just do whatever you want, no matter how much it costs.
Yeah. Tawi, let me ask you this question, and you touched on it briefly in the verbiage that you were just giving us, but the left today in this country seems to be downplaying success, seems to be absolutely denigrating using the tools that God gave you for talents in successful lifestyle. But you just talked about creating success and being successful. Why is it that the left, the liberal left in this country, is absolutely wanting everybody to be like a herd of sheep, all the same, and nobody reaching or attaining any goals?
I think that it's not just the liberal left, but I think it's any person who would argue that you just need to listen to people, listen to the system, and that after you listen to that, it'll treat you well. I think that you need to become independent. I think that, and to become independent, you need to educate yourself, but not just take the education that you get from school. School is where you get the background of the information, and then you need to read yourself, you need to research yourself, you need to realize what you're reading, you need to realize the context in which things have been said, and then you need to come to your own conclusions. And I think when you become independently thinking, such as that, then you become your own person. But if you're the type of person who doesn't want to do that, or you have never thought to do that, you will automatically believe whatever is told to you. And for people who are subservient to an authority figure, whether that be all the way through grade school, through college, it automatically translates to then the government, who can then tell you whatever they want to do, and you automatically will say to yourself, well, the president or my senator or my congressman or my committeeman knows better than I because they are the authority figure, and therefore I should listen to them, instead of the congressman is the person who I'm holding accountable for these laws that I want to be upheld and these liberties which I shouldn't think be infringed.
Now, you are the campus coordinator at St. John's University for the Students for Liberty. Now, I'm assuming Students for Liberty, it's an organization of a similar mindset to yours, that we can make change, we can restore the values of America like it used to be. Is that basically a real quick synopsis of what it is?
It's close. We basically believe that promoting liberty on campuses, and that's independent of any political party, but mainly to restore liberty in the minds of students and get away from statism in all of its forms, because there's plenty of statism on the left and the right as it stands today. So we don't officially align with any parties or candidates, but purely aligned with principles of liberty. And that's what we seek to uphold.
Do you see, for this midterm election in 2014, do you see more young people your age getting involved, wanting to go vote, wanting to be a part of the action, wanting to understand what each party or each individual person stands for? Do you see more of it, or are the percentages going down like they are in the older generation of not turning out to vote?
I would say that from my perspective on the ground, where I have been in New York, I definitely started to see a shift. I'm graduating from college very soon, at least for my undergraduate degree. So I'm starting to see people more interested in the world around them, mostly because a lot of the news and the policies that they used to hear about and not care much for are now having a very tangible and real effect on their lives and the way that they can live them. So people are starting, in my age group, generally speaking from what I've seen, to get more interested. On a broad basis across the country, I definitely think that our generation, though, is a little bit more, they're less likely to trust the government than before. And I think that the generation before ours, including our parents, were more likely to trust the government and were less active politically on a broad basis in the sense of campaigning against more government control. But I think that our generation is filled with people who definitely want to buck the status quo and who do not agree with the way things are getting done now. So I think you're going to see a lot of change in this generation.
You just mentioned the words
across marijuana legalization, school vouchers for children, ending foreign engagements that don't need to be gotten into, including tons of other social issues that I think that you're going to see a lot of change in this generation.
All right. Now, you just mentioned a few moments ago the words "not trust" in the government. Surely you, as a young person going out into the world now, graduating from college, and basically having to float your own boat, you're looking at Obamacare as an added expense and possibly a negative in your life and the deterioration of health care in this country. What are your thoughts and the other thoughts of students that you work with about the forced Obamacare into your life?
There are a couple of students that I've personally spoken to who I have asked about their experiences with the healthcare exchange website. I know one person who wasn't able to sign up for healthcare because the website wasn't operational completely, and I know some people who are a little bit upset because their plans have been raised. I personally I'm fortunate enough to have health care from my parents, so that is not going to be something I have to worry about until I'm roughly 27 or 26, I think is the cutoff date. But I definitely think that the way that it's being done is dangerous. I think that it's a little bit dangerous when you have a system that is supposedly going to cut costs across a long period of time. But all I see now is a little bit of a sweetheart deal for the insurance companies where everyone is forced to have health care, but they have to pay more for it than they used to. So I don't see personally right now how that particularly benefits any people who are having trouble affording health care. I know that there are some people who have made off who didn't have health care and now they do. But I think for the broad middle section, which is always the people who get affected, because the richest of the society normally can afford everything that they can. It's just less money in their pockets. And the poorest of the society usually are able to get by with the exclusions and programs, but it's the middle class that always gets crunched in a lot of these situations.
To sum up with basically on our conversation, and there's other topics I wanted to get into this morning, but we have a lack of time, but the younger generation coming out of college, you have high hopes that there's going to be some common sense prevail and hopefully some good things happen in America. Is that basically the bottom line?
Yes, I think that our generation is going to change a lot of things, and I think that we're going to definitely fight back against more government. I think that we're a more independent-minded generation, and I think that on top of that, I think that the way that we view the world and with technology and entrepreneurship becoming more popular, I think this is going to be a very independent-minded generation. Just looking at things like Uber that is now annoying a lot of taxi cartels around the country that are starting to lose out on competition, and from the amount of people I see trying to start their own businesses, I definitely think that you're going to have a generation of people who are independent and don't want the government or an institution's help, but want to do things on their own.
I appreciate your time this morning. A very sharp young man, economic student at St. John's University in New York City and campus coordinator for Students for Liberty, Tawe Baisolo. Thank you very much for being on the program, and we wish you the very best in the future.
Thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you. A very interesting study and conversation. That young man had appeared on Fox News a couple of days ago, and he was part of a young people's panel about attitudes towards the administration and Obama and everything else, and they found out that people between the ages of 18 and 29 absolutely are not in favor of Obamacare, and Obama's approval rating among young Americans is just 41%. It's down 11 percentage points from a year ago. And they also said that the survey said 33% of young Americans consider themselves Democrats, 24% identify themselves with the GOP, but The largest and growing segment is among independents. 41% think that they're independent in their thought and how politics should be run. Interesting young man right there, Tawe Baisolo, economics student at St. John's University in New York City. We'll take some more of your calls. I've got time. Caller real quick. I've got about 3 minutes left. Go ahead.
There's things like this that give us hope because this is the thing that's kind of been showing itself lately, like, I've said in the past, and you know already. And that these young people, they're realizing that if they don't take the bull by the horns, it doesn't look like anybody else is going to. You and I and everybody else that's like us, that's patriotic and caring, are doing our best, but these young people say, well, we won't even have a future. There will be no capitalism. There will be no American dream. There will be no freedom. We won't be able to go out and do what we want when we want. We'll end up in some sort of a socialistic and ultimately a communistic country. And even I can't even imagine how a young person can if they have any wherewithal at all, would think that going the socialist communist route would be anything. Those people usually must be useful idiots or smoking something.
Well, the thing I got from the conversation with this young man, and I had seen him on Fox News when he did the interview, was that personal responsibility is theirs. They wanted the right to bring back a moral society with adherence to the Constitution. They didn't trust the government. They didn't want Obamacare forced down their throats. They believed in independent business. They believed in capitalism. And Randy, honestly, when you listen to somebody like this young man, it gives me hope. It gives me a feeling like not all is bad and that the American ideal can still live on.
Well, my son, I have 5 sons, but my one son, my 23-year-old son, says, what about me? He says, what about the future I get? He says, what is going to happen to us? And then let alone our grandkids, Zeb. And I says, well, I don't know. I just know this, that if we don't rise up and take things back, America, capitalism, starting your own business, making a few bucks, putting a few bucks in the bank, going and doing a few things, maybe traveling, seeing things, getting married, having a family, all these things to a liberal communist statist, they are secondary. Yep. Control is everything. Well, capitalism, freedom, a representative republic is in our DNA, and I think that when the resiliency of the American people and the American businessmen, they're saying, the hell with it, stop us. We're going to go for it. No matter what you do, we will continue to do what we've done.
Absolutely. Randy, I appreciate your call. I got to wrap things up. Have a great day, and thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Don't forget Big Spring Tire Sale going on at all 7 locations of your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh boy, their service is really reigning supreme. They've got this big tire sale like the Ultra Z900, their best all-season touring tire, on sale. Over 20% more tread life, outstanding wet and dry traction, quieter riding tire. For your cars, it is a number one. Great brake service. Positively excellent brake service. Shocks and struts, front end alignments, batteries, custom wheels. There's a big spring tire sale going on right now. You better stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, Twist Family and Paul, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. What do we got cooking for tomorrow? Well, 9:06 after the first hour of an open forum with all kinds of different goodies for you to call in on. At 9:06, we've got Doug Johnson calling in from Colorado. Then at 9:30 tomorrow, we have a legislative update. All the highlights that took place and the lowlights that took place up at the legislative session with Representative Fred Wood calling in. And then at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, we have the Idaho Fish and Game Report. And again, your calls are welcome. That's going to wrap it up for me today. And and I want to wish you and yours a very good day. Looks like today you can stay outside and enjoy it and not be blown into the next county. And we'll be back here again tomorrow morning at 8:06 right here on K-Bar 1230, and then streaming live on the net, ZebBell.com. And by the way, if you'd like to get a copy of my newsletter once a week, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, just go to the news site, ZebBell.com, and go and you'll find where it says to put the address in so that you can start receiving a copy of that weekly blog, okay? Until tomorrow morning at 8:06, the way things were, the way things ought to be. God bless. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.